Oops, sorry.
Start that again.
Yep.
All right, calling the Cable Television Advisory Board for September 10th, 2021 to order. Good morning. To join by Zoom, please refer to the agenda or the website for meeting link and telephone number. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please indicate if participating via Zoom and state why you are not in the meeting in person, whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I believe we do actually have someone joining us by Zoom, so let's start with the roll call. Andrew Sonoda is here. Justin Chapman. All right, and we have a new person from Public Works, Lauren Byers.
Here.
Alderman Jetty. Kimberly Kleiner.
Here.
Cheryl Lindner.
Here.
Jennifer McCormick.
Here.
Captain Medeiros.
Here.
Nick Mesrovich.
Here.
Cole Morgan sent his regrets. Brian Rhodes.
Here.
All right, and we also, although we lost Rodriguez, and he's also not on the roll call list. All right, Mr. Rodriguez from the school department was here briefly, but via Zoom, but he doesn't appear to be there anymore. All right, let's proceed since we do have a quorum. Also joining us is Corporation Counsel Bolton, Mr. Pete Johnson, and Mr. Jeff Painert. So comments from the public or others? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to acceptance of meetings, minutes from previous meetings. Is there a motion with regard to the minutes from the June 11th, 2021 meeting?
I'll move to accept and place on file.
Motion to accept and place on file. Any discussion?
Second.
Oh, there's a second, okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion passes. All right, written communications. I believe you all have a copy of a letter from the Public Works Director's office appointing Ms. Byers as their representative to CTAB. I'll read it briefly. This is addressed to Kimberly Kleiner. Hi, Kim. I would like to like Lauren Byers to represent Public Works on the CTAB board. Thanks, Lisa. Lisa M. Fatow, Director of Public Works, City of Nashua. Is there a motion with regard to the written communications?
Motion to accept.
There's a motion to accept.
Second.
And the second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All the,
Also, one other one from the principal at Nashua North. That was listed in your packet as well. I was gonna read it during my presentation, but just keep it on file at any rate.
if this is regarding the employment,
No, it's not.
no.
It's regarding our coverage of the graduations. Has the paw print on it, the panther print on it.
Oh, okay. All right, it's an email to Pete Johnson from Keith Richard. Thanks for the filming and streaming. This email was great. Awesome job.
And then it has the email copied below, and that was what I was gonna read later.
All right, if you're going to read it later, include it in your report. Would anyone like to modify the motion to accept the written communications? To include the additional email? Chief?
Yeah, I'll
You're-
make that motion to accept.
Okay.
modify.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion passes. All right, Mr. Painter, can you present your report?
I can. Our current balance of operating account 2505 is $655,925.16. Our expenses for August 2021, including salaries and facility operations, totaled $21,147 plus a $14,000 contractor payment for a total of $35,082. We had 1,828 cable casts, total in from July to August. Of this, 41 were live events, and this broke down to Education 9919, Government 1622. We had 1,787 playbacks, and of this, Public 96 was 846, Education 99, 547, and Government 16 was 394. All right, addressing potential changes to the public access TV contract. This is our first request, and, excuse me, Community Media Service Group, LLC, has been the contractor providing operations of the City of Nashua's public access channel for more than 10 years. The contractor is looking to change some of the contract language, including the business name, to be better aligned with their channel name of Access Nashua. As part of the conversation, it was suggested to shift some of their annual funding back to the city and create a new city position of studio coordinator that would work for all three PEG channels. Dan Young has been the part-time creative director, studio liaison for Access Nashua for a number of years, and also works for the city on an hourly basis creating in-studio content for both the government and education channels. We have several letters of recommendation supporting the creation of a full-time city position, including praise of Dan and his studio work with producers and community leaders. And you have those in your packet today. We will be looking to discuss these potential changes today and answer any questions and look for CTAB's approval. Next, we have the upcoming financial request for a new public works facility. As plans for the new Public Works facility continue, draft plans call for a large conference room to hold Board of Public Works meetings and other meetings. Public Works has requested that we be part of the process to enable this area to broadcast to a wider audience over the CTV network. While we will be happy to take on a consulting role in any scenario for them, we have stipulated that in order to be financially involved, our role would have to be clearly defined. That is, whatever is needed to build and equip this area as a conference center would be the responsibility of Public Works. Whatever video equipment is required to extend any event to a wider city audience, live or for replay, will be our expense. Further, the conference area must be made available for other venues to use for television event coverage when not in use by Public Works. As the planning evolves, we will update you, culminating in an eventual request for a specific funds approval. Now, if Public Works decides they want this specifically for their own use, while not financially involved, we will, of course, provide a videographer to cover their required meetings for broadcast or replay in the facility. Then I have drives. The drives we use for our current projects, as well as archival storage, have had a catastrophic failure, and we have to replace them. As this has put us at a standstill production-wise, we set out two criteria in our emergency search for replacements. First, we need more storage space up front, and second, we require a second mirror arrangement at a separate location. Although this will double the size of the system without affecting its capacity, it will more importantly assure that with this redundancy, such a failure doesn't occur again, and that our operation won't come to a grinding halt. To purchase and install this system, we ask for your approval in an amount not to exceed $19,000. I think that's,
The public, or franchise renewal, public hearings.
oh, I'm sorry, God. I'm confusing myself here. Yeah, I'm sorry, franchise renewal public hearing schedule. We would like to discuss and tentatively agree upon a date to schedule the necessary public hearing for our franchise renewal process. All right, now Pete?
All right, we'll move on to the educational part of the report here. Nashua ETV accomplishments for July to August included on the 8th of July, a Nashua Silver Knights baseball game live at Holman. On the 16th, we recorded a new Public Health Matters show in studio. On the 21st, the Nashua Silver Knights once again from Holman. On the 29th, we recorded another Public Health Matters show. 30th, Silver Knights. On the 8th, we did the New Hampshire Girls Hockey Invitational from Tri-Town Arena. On the 10th, I believe was the last Silver Knights baseball game of the season that we did. On the 11th, we recorded another Public Health Matters show, and we did live coverage of the Joint Special School Building Committee meeting that was held at Fairgrounds Elementary School on August 26th. The 27th, we did another Public Health Matters show. Those are recording every other week now in studio. And on the 30th, we recorded a tour of the newly renovated Fairgrounds Middle School with Alderman Dowd and Mayor Donches. Since the beginning of September, we've recorded the first day of school for returning 7th and 8th graders at Fairgrounds and started our fall sports programming, which continues tonight at 6:30 p.m. with the Merrimack at Nashua North football game, which will be live from Stello Stadium. And I did mention that we had a letter that came in since our last meeting from the principal at Nashua South. He had said that he had received several emails, but this was one of the nicer ones that he received regarding our coverage of graduation, so I'll read that. It says, "Thank you to your school district for broadcasting the Nashua South graduation ceremonies today. I live in North Glen, Colorado, and Madison Shearer is my great niece. Because of health problems, I am not traveling now, so it was wonderful to watch the ceremony from afar. It was fun to clap for Madison when she was on stage, getting her picture taken with you. I know her great uncle and aunt in Huntsville, Alabama, and my cousin in Cedar Springs, Michigan, were also watching. I think Madison's grandpa and grandma in Grand Rapids were watching because I don't think they drove to New Hampshire to see it. Thanks again for broadcasting. Tricia Bird, North Glen, Colorado." I thought that was representative of some of the stuff that the principals received. Both of them said that they received similar types of letters from other residents around the country, that we were able to provide live coverage streaming of both graduations. So,
All right, thank you. Mr. Gagnon.
Yes, good morning. Access Nashua celebrated its 10th year in existence on July 1st, and we are still going strong, not as strong as pre-pandemic, of course, but we have a new show that started up, keeping Nashua informed, as well as we have a backlog of potential new shows of individuals that want to start producing their own show. It's a backlog of four right now. Otherwise than that, our concerns today, we'll be talking about the contract and the proposed new position for the 3 channels. I mean, that's it unless people have some questions specific.
All right, so we've had our reports. Is there a motion?
Accept.
Motion to accept, discussion of the reports. Does anyone have any questions? Comments? All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, moving on. I don't believe we have any representatives from the Education Committee, so presumably I don't have a report.
Excuse me, Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kim.
So, Kim Kleiner, we did have a meeting of the Education Committee, and that was August 10th. It was held by Zoom, and I attended on behalf of CTAP.
Oh, thank you.
We discussed a lot of the upcoming programming on what they were looking at for programming. Both Peter Johnson also attended. They were looking for suggestions on the Eye on Education show, and how we were going to look at dealing with the new middle school, and getting information out to parents on COVID and the implications that it will have for school this year. There is an upcoming meeting to be held in person this coming Tuesday, and that is at 10 a.m.
All right, thank you. Any discussion of the Education Committee's report? All right. Moving on, there is no old business on our agenda. New business, potential public access contract changes. I think since we probably have quite a bit of discussion on this point, let's dive in. Would anyone, perhaps Mr. Gagnon, you can explain the changes that you're interested in making to your contract.
Sure. So as I mentioned, we're celebrated our 10th year, and the contract that we've been running under is actually 9 years old. What you have in your package is the last contract, and then the proposed contract that I'm putting forward. And the way I set it up was the items that were in red. Oops, and I apologize if they didn't print them in color. But the items that proposed changes to are highlighted in red. One of the reasons I'm proposing it is to better align our company so that it can continue on easily when I do decide to retire, which is not for a couple more years. That it would just be able to be moved, the person that I would be grooming to replace me would then just take over the company at that point. Now, I had put out a contract revision page that shows on what page what was changed. I don't know if, do you want me to go each point, or?
Perhaps you could summarize the importance.
Okay. Probably one of the more important changes is the removal of the Access National Advisory Board. That was set up originally so that we would have some input on how to run the station and the channel.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify, apparently there are not copies in the packets that people had on their desk today. There was an email that I think went out earlier that had them.
Correct.
But people don't actually have it physically in front of them at the meeting today. So, sorry for
Okay,
interrupting.
well, no, so. Any suggestions on?
Ms. Kleiner?
So that is correct. There was an email sent out. We felt we needed to give the board more than a week to review these contracts. And that email did say that the materials would be included with the agenda. So our apologies that it was not included again with your packet on Friday. Since then, I think there's been a number of concerns regarding some of the contract changes. One that has been brought to my attention is Human Resources and Administrative Services has some questions on the creation of the new position and it being bound by this contract. We would suggest that the two be handled separately. The city has rules that govern the hiring of an individual, and that needs to be posted, and there needs to be an interview process, and so we would suggest that the two be handled separately. So I think at this point, if people don't have it in front of them and they are not, because it is a lot to absorb, that we table this and maybe schedule another meeting and not leave it for quarterly.
I think I'd agree with that, specifically since when the Access Nashua was created and it was decided to operate it under a contract versus operate it directly by the city, that was the product of months, if not years, of discussion. And a change that impacts aspects of that, I think, is probably meriting its own separate discussion and, you know, as far as a consideration as far as the whole structure of the contract itself.
I would agree. One of the reasons we had asked Corporation Counsel to be here was to give advice on if this did change any ordinances that were created as part of that original legislation, and then obviously to advise us on other issues too that may come up. But I do think that this is a discussion that warrants its own meeting.
All right, Mr. Gagnon?
Yes, I fully agree with that also. Now, I'm not sure if you think that the changes to the contract change anything having to do with us being still a subcontractor, which is what it does. It doesn't change. We'd still be a subcontractor and not under the government entity. And concerning the change of position, the only way, well, the way it affects us, being CMSG or Access Nashville LLC, is that our budget would be reduced in order to cover for 80% of the new position, okay? So I agree we should keep them totally separate. I would appreciate that if we could schedule a meeting in another month just for the contract, so that everybody does have the time, because I know contracts are not fun. So that's my,
All right, is there a motion then with regard to, well, I suppose we probably don't actually need one, we could probably just call it as an emergency one, but let's go with the motion version, to have a special meeting to discuss this. And I don't know if we want to leave the date of that subject to discussion about availability of both the room and members. All right. Someone like
Yes,
to-
since there are members that are not here, perhaps we can look at proposing a date and then putting it out to the full membership.
All right,
I can make a motion to table this proposal, this request, to schedule a separate special meeting of the CTAB board at a date to be determined based on availability of the committee.
all right, there's a motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes. All right. Next item on new business, the new Public Works facility approval. Would someone like to make a motion to start us off?
I'm not sure what action are we being asked to take. My interpretation
Yeah, I
was
don't
that-
think there's a firm
was-
dollar figure yet.
No, it was
so-
more of a, this is coming
Okay,
type of part of the report. So, yeah, there wasn't a real request for anything, other than we will be back and we will have a request at some point.
all right, so I guess I'll modify. Is there anything else we need to know about it that wasn't included in your previous report that,
No, not at this point.
does anyone have any questions for Jeff about Public Works? Ms. Kleiner?
If I may suggest, I would suggest that we invite Mr. Cummings, Director Cummings, who is handling that project, and perhaps Director Photo, to a meeting so that they may give the committee more detail. And in the meantime, Jeff can work with them to perhaps clarify what a price would be on that type of project.
That sounds good, like a good approach. Thank you. All right, again, I don't know that we need a motion for that, so, all right. Next item, financial request for new drives.
Okay.
This one, we do need a motion.
That one's a definite, yeah, a hard number.
I will make a motion to approve the request of not to exceed $19,000 for replacement of the drives. ASAP.
All right, discussion?
Second?
Mr. Miserovich.
Nick Miserovich here. Just to clarify for members of the board, it's the entire storage area network unit that failed, not the individual drives themselves. So we believe the drives are still working, and the vendor has indicated that if we remove the drives and put them in a replacement unit, there's a good chance we'll be able to recover that data. So that's what we're hoping for. In addition, the community development, television staff requested an increase of storage, so we're gonna double the size of the unit. So we are gonna double the capacity. So we're going from 4 terabyte drives to 8 terabyte drives, which will give them approximately 55 terabytes of storage to utilize in how they use this system, whether it's, editing their productions or storing footage, what have you. As part of this request, they are also requesting a second unit for replication. So if we have a hardware failure down the road, the second unit will contain the same data as the first unit, so we don't have an outage for them in the future.
All right. Any other discussion?
Mr. Miservich, that would, is it possible to have that in a separate location, like at the Riverside Street facility, so that if there's a fire at one of the facilities, that we don't lose? Both.
It can be at an alternate location. Let's discuss the location.
Okay, yeah.
When the time comes, because the better location may be the disaster recovery site.
Fine.
But yes, it can be in a separate
Okay.
location.
Just my question. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right, there's been a motion, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Discussion of franchise renewal public hearing. All right, Ms. Kleiner, can you brief us on where we stand on that?
Yes, happy to. Kim Kleiner. So we originally had looked at having a public hearing, which would have been last night. And there's a requirement with a public hearing that is put in the newspaper. The fact that we don't have a daily print in the city brings certain challenges. And then the fact that we didn't have some members of the committee that could be present last evening. One of those members being our liaison to the Board of Aldermen, which ultimately has to vote on this measure. So we felt for that reason that we should delay the public hearing and have the board look at another date. We would suggest that we have time to give 2 or 3, preferably 3 weeks in advance. We'd want to give at least 10 days notice from print of the hearing notice. And we want to make sure that Alderman Jettie and a couple others who aren't here today will be able to attend that hearing as well. We did touch base with Mr. Christensen at Comcast to see if they had developed yet Comcast's position, and they have not finished it. So that's where we are currently. We're waiting for that as well.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, any sort of general comments about the franchise agreement process? Feedback that people might have gotten from other citizens? All right.
So my suggestion would be if we work with the mayor's office and with the legislative manager, develop some dates that may work. We can circulate them to the committee, but we'll look at all city calendars to make sure there's not another event. You don't have one of your boards or trustees meeting. And then we can set that forth to the committee and see if there's any large, something that jumps out as a conflict. But I think working with the legislative manager and the mayor's office is the 2 largest pieces.
All right, thank you. All right, comments from the public or remarks by members?
Nope, excuse me.
Yes. Mr.
Still
Grant.
under new business. Is there any reason that the new position can't be discussed and at this time? Because it really has nothing to do with the contract, because our contract doesn't state a dollar amount in our contract. It just say what's approved by the Board of Aldermen.
Ms. Kleiner?
So I would have a problem because currently we are operating month to month and we're paying for you month to month. Based on the old contract, which has expired, is what led to this discussion of there needs to be a new contract. I would not want to have a conversation about the city changing its budget and that requires other legislation and, in this meeting without being able to discuss what that contract revision would look like. Otherwise, you're talking about expending funds from our current budget based on your old contract and possibly working on legislation to change the PEG budget. I think it's a discussion that needs to be had.
I would also say that the contract isn't just the financial aspect of it, it's also scope of work. And this might impact scope of work as well. So I think the two, they're separate issues, but they're intertwined enough that the discussion probably should happen at the same time.
Okay, thanks for the answer.
All right, any other comments or remarks? If not, is there a final motion?
Adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, see everyone, well, at our next scheduled meeting, at a date to be determined. Thank you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right. See you, Dan.
Yeah.